Honor Club, where honor is real.
Welcome to ROH Strong Podcast. Here is your host, Kevin Eck.
What's up, Honor Nation? Welcome to episode 27 of the ROH Strong Podcast, the official podcast of Ring of Honor Wrestling. I have a special guest on the show today. He got the wrestling world buzzing several weeks ago as rumors of his impending arrival in Ring of Honor swirled. And over the weekend, we saw those rumors confirmed when he showed up on ROH TV. He is EC3. EC3, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on your forum of discussion. The essential character is here to see if honor is real.
Well, I have to say, as someone who has known you for nearly a decade now, but also speaking just as a wrestling fan, as well as someone who works for Ring of Honor, I am thrilled to have you in ROH because I think a lot of fans assumed that you had re-signed with Impact because you showed up on Impact. But obviously that's not the case. So first question is going to be, what is your contract status at this point?
My contract status is to solely control the narrative, control my narrative, control your narrative. That is not just a lifestyle, that is a mission and a goal. So contractually, I'm obliged to only one entity, and that is myself. Now, with Impact, there was a story to be told. There was a catharsis I needed before I could move on to other things in my career. So by going back to Impact, I had to destroy my past, so to speak. I had to, every part of resentment and anger and just loathing I had about who I was and what I became, I had to put an end to where it started, which was with Impact Wrestling. But as we've seen this week, I'm here to see if honor is real.
Well, absolutely. You mentioned your past, and certainly you have no past in Ring of Honor. This is a new frontier for you. So
I love it. I love it.
Your first impression of you've been around the locker room for a little bit now. We said we saw you debut on TV last week. What is your first impression of the Ring of Honor roster?
The first impression is kind of hard to dictate at this moment, just due to the restrictions we're adhering to because of the coronavirus pandemic. So in usual form of getting to know not only your colleagues, but also your opponents, there's not a lot of interaction between myself and anybody else on the roster. So it's been a hard segue because I do like to study people's characters. I do like to watch them when they think they aren't being watched. I like to observe them in their natural climate. I like to see how they change faces, so to speak, when they discuss things with other people. I like to get to know people. I like to get inside their minds a little bit. So it's been hard due to these restrictions. I mean, obviously Ring of Honor is the best wrestling in the world. That is a no-brainer. Easy to see that. But not having the interactions with colleagues / opponents, it's been kind of a hard transition because it's part of my game is very subliminal and mental.
Well, I know that in your debut, you brushed up against the Briscoes, also Shane Taylor. Let me first ask you about the Briscoes. Had you ever crossed paths with them before? Obviously, you're familiar with who they are. That's a no-brainer. But have you ever met them before you did at TV?
There was a time in a past life where I believe the venue was called Florida Championship Wrestling. And I believe the Briscoes were in to maybe do business, maybe get a tryout, maybe get a look. And we interacted multiple times there. And the old fun-loving, friendly party boy me was a big fan because they're two wild country boys. They're cool like that. And then they came in and they blew the doors off with their trial matches. They're incredible talents. We know that. I guess it never worked out, but I have interacted them in a past life, in a past territory.
Well, let me ask you also about Shane Taylor. Now, I know both of you guys are from the Cleveland area, so would I be correct in assuming that at some point you must have crossed paths on an indie show or something?
Shane Taylor and I actually have a storied history that nobody really knows about due to that Cleveland connection. I was kind of on my way out of the Cleveland scene, embarking on this great journey through professional wrestling that I'm on. At the time, he was kind of coming into his own, coming up through the indies, starting through Absolute Intense Wrestling, Firestorm Pro Wrestling, local places around in the Cleveland, Erie, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh vicinity. So I've known him very well. I think the man who originally trained me has had a hand in training him. We were close in a sense because he was young, he was hungry, and I always appreciated that. And he wanted to get better and improve and move on, and he's done a great job with that. So part of me is very proud of the man he became as far as a professional and making the noise he's made. He's been a champion here, I believe. Like, he's really put himself on the map. And then the other part of me is kind of dissuaded by his overall attitude towards things. But at the same time, I've never stepped foot in his shoes. I've never lived his life. I don't know how I would act if I've been through what he's been through, or vice versa. So, but yeah, Shane and I do have a history.
I think with you and Shane, it could almost be one of those things where you're too alike and too similar, perhaps, to get along and be in the same place at the same time. Because much like yourself, Shane has created his own narrative and kind of grabbed a hold of his career when, maybe he wasn't getting the proper opportunities or, the quote unquote push. He kind of just seized that opportunity and made it happen. Very similar to what you've been doing.
Well, nobody's ever going to give it to you. And if they give it to you, you'll never truly appreciate it. You have to take it. And that's one thing I do respect about what Shane has done. He's controlled his narrative.
Well, and we're going to talk a lot about controlling your narrative as we continue this discussion. First, I want to ask you, though, about look, we're not going to on the RH Strong podcast, we do not criticize any other promotions. This is not what that's about. But I do think that you're going to enjoy the creative freedom in Ring of Honor that perhaps you may not have had in other places that you've worked. That's really of the utmost importance to you at this point in your career, isn't it? Isn't that what creating your narrative is all about?
It's the only thing I thrive on in this industry anymore, is being able to not only tell stories, so to speak. I don't know if I care for that quote as much as tell my story my way. I know me better than anybody knows me. I'm the absolute best me that exists because I'm the only one. I feel that is, I don't think it's creative freedom as much as creative liberty to be able to express yourself, the freedom to act, the freedom to think, the freedom to speak, the freedom to feel, the freedom to perform how you want to perform. There's a huge, gigantic, massive upside to being here. And I believe you're correct. There's times in my career I was not in control of my narrative, not at all. And 14 people slapping at a typewriter don't know me and don't want to know you either.
Are you watching the show that's thrilling critics and fans? ROH Pure. The reviews are in. It's completely different than anything else in pro wrestling. I enjoyed every minute of this show. ROH Pure delivers. Valiant Saint raves. Take my money. This was awesome. Join our ROH stars for the hashtag ROH Pure Watch Party every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific.